Hi and welcome to my October wrap-up and November hopefuls. I finished 7 books in October. Let's start with the only contemporary fiction novel I read in October, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is a young adult dystopian. It's the year of the 10th Hunger Games, and 18-year-old Coriolanus Snow is given a unique opportunity to win a scholarship to university. A much needed money, as the once great House of Snow has fallen into ruin. The problem is that he must mentor a tribute from the lowest district, District 12, and a girl, no less. But once he meets his tribute, Lucy Gray-Baird, a singer and a performer, he is certain he can win the audience to her and his side. I really loved The Hunger Games, but I must admit that when I first heard that Suzanne Collins was writing a prequel to the series, I was hesitant to read it, as you can guess by the fact that it took me this long to read a book that came out in 2020. I usually find prequels and sequels to already finished series unnecessary. I haven't watched the movie adaptation either, but last summer I saw a YouTube video essay about the design of Hunger Games that used this book and the movie as examples, and I was intrigued enough to finally read this. I'm sorry to say that even though I did enjoy reading this, my fears were well founded. The Hunger Games was an exciting, fast-paced series full of action. This book, unfortunately, isn't. The pacing felt very slow, as if nothing was happening. There were a lot of world-building details that could have been edited out to make the story move faster. What I did like was that Snow was not completely unlikable. His backstory made me even feel some sympathy for him, and he is capable of at least some level of friendship and care, even though most of his actions are motivated from a selfish desire for self-preservation. Snow is not a born tyrant, but chooses to become one through his actions. Since this is a villain origin story, I expected it to have a corruption arc where Snow slowly descends from the bright and ambitious student into the tyrannical villain he is in the main trilogy. However, I don't think this book achieved that. For the majority of the story, Snow is a passive character, and when the pace finally picks up during the last 50 or 60 pages, there is no time for the grand finale I was waiting for. The ending happened very fast, and the climax was over before it had a chance to develop into something exciting. Another problem related to Snow's corruption arc is the villain of the story. Every story needs an antagonist, but Dr. Gall was so abhorrent that it made no sense that Snow would agree with her even a little bit, let alone enough to turn to the dark side. A more charming and manipulating villain would have made Snow's corruption easier to understand. The so-called love between Snow and Lucy Gray developed fast, and I wish the book would have made it clearer that what Snow felt was not actual love, but some sort of obsession or desire to control and own her. There are hints of this throughout the novel, but the point could have been spelled out. I would have also wanted a clearer indication of Lucy Gray's feelings towards Snow. Did she really love him, or was she just using him for her survival? Lucy Gray came off as a very manic pixie dream girl, but that's understandable since we only see her through Snow's eyes and not as a person of her own. Technically, this book should be 3 stars, but I'm giving it 1 extra star for world building and Lucy Gray, whose character I really enjoyed. I probably would have enjoyed this book more if it had been from her perspective and if she had come from a district we know little about from the original trilogy. Other than that, I don't think this book added anything invaluable to the world of Panem that the readers needed to learn about. I finished 2 classic novels in October. The Idiot was the last of Fyodor Dostoevsky's major works that I hadn't read yet. The main character Prince Myshkin's goodness and simplicity lead other people to mistakenly assume that he lacks intelligence and insight. The novel examines the consequences of placing a character others deem as an idiot at the center of the conflicts and passions of worldly society. I liked the more humorous beginning, but I lost interest as the story progressed. That's something that I find happens a lot when reading Dostoevsky. I liked the beginning of Crime and Punishment and The Brothers Karamazov as well, but as the books went on, I lost interest amidst all those philosophical discussions. My favorite Dostoevsky works are the shorter ones I've read, The Double and Uncle's Dream. Let's just say that Dostoevsky is not my favorite author, and I only read this book to see what it was about. The second classic was The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I had wanted to take part in Victober, but unfortunately I have too many unread books in my physical TBR. Luckily one of them was a Victorian book, so this was my Victober read this year. The 12 stories in this collection were nice short reads, but I must admit I'm not a huge fan of Sherlock Holmes. He's a bit too smug and arrogant for my taste. Also in these short stories the plots wrap up rather fast, as Sherlock has already solved the mystery before the story has barely even started. I do want to see if the longer Sherlock Holmes stories are more to my taste, so I want to read at least A Study in Scarlet at some point. I finished 4 non-fiction books. The first was Britney Spears' memoir The Woman in Me, which I've already taken back to the library. I was interested in reading Britney's story of her life and conservatorship in her own words. Her life has truly been horrific, and I'm glad she's now free from her parents. At the same time, I must admit that I was disappointed with this book. It doesn't reach the level of self-reflection I would expect from a memoir. The book barely scratches the surface, as Britney doesn't talk much about her experiences in the music industry. There was a lot of repetition and unnecessary details. I think the ghostwriters, apparently there were 3, should have edited the book more and prompted Britney to delve deeper into details of her life. As it is, this book is a missed opportunity. I also reread Eusebius's The Church History, which was the last unread ancient Greek book on my shelves. The 2 other non-fiction books were in Finnish. I read a handbook for book editors and a book about Finnish history from the 19th to early 21st century. And then it's time for my November hopefuls. I'm focusing on writing in November, so my goal is to read 2 books and start another 2 that I will finish in December. The first is The Court Dancer by Kyung-Suk Shin. This is a Korean historical fiction. I will also start my first Christopher series, The Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. I will read Shadow and Bone and start reading Siege and Storm. And the 4th book is non-fiction. This is my old high school Finnish handbook, and I think it's time to finally read it. So those were all of the books I read in October and plan to read in November. Let me know in the comments what your favorite read in October was, and I'll see you in my next video.